Hello and welcome to Flix and Chill with me, Luke. And today I'm pleased to announce Rowan Wood is with me today. So, Rowan, take it.
Oh boy. Hello everybody. My name is Rowan Wood. I am a film student at Sarah Lawrence College, right outside of New York City. Although I am not in New York right now, I sort of travel up and down the Northeast for various reasons over the course of the last year or so. But yeah, I have always been into movies ever since I can remember. My father was the one who sort of drilled that into me, not by necessarily by showing me movies, although he did, of course, do that. But
Mhm,
had this, he still does have this massive collection of discs and DVDs in
mhm,
his office in our basement. And I would always just like whenever I went downstairs for any reason, I would just marvel at that wall. It was like
mhm.
it was one full wall and one like half wall, and I would just wonder what the hell are these movies
Yeah,
and how and like at that point when I was first thinking about that, like I was far too young to see pretty much any of them.
yeah.
But I was just always so fascinated about about like the possibility of what those movies could be, and that just like really kickstarted my imagination so much so
Mhm,
that I got interested in filmmaking as well, not just movies as something that you watch. But every year when my family would go on a vacation to Maine, my dad would sort of spearhead a project that would keep my cousins and I, when we were kids, occupied, and that was we would make a movie, and we would involve everyone. We would involve all of our family that was there with us. And essentially, it was, it was always just some like goofy, like fantasy, fantasy comedy type, like just stuff that didn't make any sense, that was just designed to
mhm.
keep us occupied. But we would have a product at the end
Yeah.
that we could screen and enjoy and laugh at. And then in 2015, we went to Maine. Our my cousins didn't go that year, so we went with a whole new group of people that we
Mhm,
knew from back home. And and my dad was sort of sick of doing the whole movie thing, and so he left it up to me. And before I took over, these movies were like 10, like 5 to 10 minutes, like, not too super ambitious in terms of story. And
mhm,
when I took over, they became 25 to 30 minutes and got super ridiculously complicated and made no sense, but in a different way. That were just sort of overloaded with lore and continuity. And ever since then, I have had an even deeper love for film because I want to experience like as wide a range of films as I can. Like I know Luke,
mhm.
I heard you say once that your aspiration is to watch every movie that has ever existed. And
Yes.
that is very admirable. I want to watch every good movie that's ever existed, with some maybe not good fun movies
Mhm,
in there as well. But when I was young, I was really apparently averse to watching like black and white films and foreign films, and I really wish I
mhm.
hadn't, because now I love silent films. I love foreign films. Like some of my favorite movies are foreign films. And
Mhm,
it's so fascinating that now, like within the last couple of years, I've embraced this world that I was so resistant to when
mhm.
I was younger. But yeah, I love movies. It's kind of my whole personality. I watch like two movies a day, which I know is not going to be super sustainable after I graduate from college in a few months. But
Mhm.
for now, yeah, it's that is like that's my biggest love. Like it's what I want to do in the future. I want to make movies. I want to write. I want to direct. I just want to live in that world, and
Mhm.
just have that be my life. So yeah.
And it shows, from all you've been doing, all the different podcasts, all,
Mhm.
your letterbox, like I envy your numbers really, because like, last year I feel like you've reached almost 800 movies logged
Yeah.
in that year, which crazy, but also kind of envious,
Mhm.
just saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I
two
that
questions.
number's gonna go down in the fall. I
No, no.
guarantee it.
No, I know. But
Yeah.
I do have two questions from the brief interaction. So, do I have it right that your dad is the one who got you into the movies?
Mhm. Yeah.
So, what would you say was the best or was your favorite movie that you got introduced to because of your dad?
Probably the Lord of the Rings trilogy, which
Nice.
I know is three movies, but like
Hmm.
come on. My parents love they love those movies. And so they showed them to me a decent amount when I was younger. They
Hmm.
did wait until I was an appropriate age to show me all three of them. And I do appreciate that because if they had showed it to me when I was younger, I wouldn't have necessarily understood them in the way
Hmm.
that I would have when I was a little bit older. And now, I just have such a deeper appreciation for them. And I love Middle Earth so much that I love the Hobbit movies too. Like I know the Hobbit movies aren't necessarily as popular or beloved as Lord of the Rings, but I just love the world so much. Like
Hmm.
world building fantasy worlds, like worlds that are so unlike our own. Like that is what I am like that's what I gravitate towards. And Middle
Hmm.
Earth is just like as perfect as you could get, honestly, with like classic old school fantasy world building. And so I think I was drawn to that when I was younger, despite not knowing what I know now about myself in that sense.
That's good. All right. See,
Yeah.
I'm gonna make an admission, which I am
Uh-huh.
hoping to correct this year. So, if you were to search up my letterboxd rankings of all those movies, you would find a surprising half a star for all three of them. And so, let me explain before you disconnect.
Interesting. Leaving the
Uh,
meeting now.
yes. No, I was basically the thing is I watched them all once when I was maybe 14 and it
Mhm,
was I think I was going through my like angsty teen phase
mhm.
and I really didn't like any of those movies.
Right.
And now when I'm twice that age, when I'm not no longer a teenager, when I've entered my 30s, I know I need to go back to them and give them a proper shake because I know they are objectively great movies. I just need to actually give them a proper shake. So hoping to rectify it this year.
Hey,
So
like a lot of people wouldn't necessarily do that.
mhm,
Like a lot of people might just stick with what they thought of it, like not
mhm.
necessarily give it another chance. So just the fact that you're doing that, I think is shows more like media maturity than a lot of I think people these days.
Or it just shows that, I acknowledge that, about 16 years ago, I was a very cringy teenager.
Right.
But again, who wasn't? Like, I'm so
Yeah,
happy
exactly.
internet wasn't as readily available when I was growing up because
Mhm.
I know that would be bad.
Yeah.
But my second question about what you just said, do you still have those short movies you made with your family?
I do, and they're all on YouTube, actually. If you search
Oh,
up The Creature from Rangeley Lake, they are all there,
hmm,
including the incredibly overcomplicated ones that I made. I think I made a YouTube channel specifically for them so I could have them all in one place. So if you want to see
nice.
little Rowan and Rowan's cousins hanging around, check those out. They're fun, especially the ones that I didn't direct.
Hmm.
Once I directed them, it starts to get the plots get muddy to the point of like not being very fun. But then again, I made it, and so I've seen it so many times that it's not fun for me to watch
No, of
anymore.
course.
But
I understand. No,
uh
that's such a cool idea. I love that you have the family movies you've made when you were like, 12, 13 on
yeah,
YouTube and they can live there
yeah,
forever. That's
yeah,
so awesome.
yeah.
So you kind of introduced yourself a bit, but let's go a bit deeper. If you
Mhm.
happen to, let's say, I know you're in a relationship, but let's say you were not and had a Tinder
Yeah.
profile. What would your Tinder profile say? Give us some of your highlights and go
Hmm.
as deep as you want.
My highlights.
Hmm.
Well, I love movies. I feel like that would have to go at the top, because I don't, because
Same.
if you don't like movies, then you and I are not really gonna get along,
Hmm.
in a at least in a deep sense.
Hmm.
Um, what is on Tinder profiles? I've never been on Tinder, so I don't
Like,
know.
no, I
Like,
understand. Like
yeah,
hobbies, what are
hobbies.
you into
Yeah,
besides movies? What are
right,
your
right.
dislikes?
I love reading. I've gotten more
Hmm.
into reading as of late. I
Hmm.
used to be the biggest reader when I was younger, and now, and after I started college, that I kind of fell off because this
Hmm.
whole new, part of life that I was not used to. But now I've gotten back into it. My partner Davis, my
Hmm.
co-host of another podcast that I do.
Shameless
Um,
plug.
yeah, shameless plug, Runtime Babe. Davis has gotten me back into reading, and that's been fantastic. Because it's such a different medium, and I really
Yep.
really enjoy how you can immerse yourself in a world like entirely different from film and television.
Hmm.
And I love Legos. I still love building Legos all
Okay.
the time. My brother got me a big Lego set as a combined birthday Christmas gift this year, and it was amazing. I just love building Legos. And my roommate and I are talking about pooling our money and getting a big Star Wars set for this spring. So we'll see if
Hmm.
that actually happens.
What's the
Um,
biggest Lego set you've built yourself?
the biggest Lego set I built myself in size, probably the Stranger Things house,
Ooh.
which is it's so you build the same thing twice, except you build the
Hmm.
house with like and you build the whole inside, but then you build the upside down version as
Oh,
well.
that's cool.
And so you can turn it over and like rest it. So like, and each one could be on top because there are trees that act as a base on either
Uh-huh.
side. And it comes with all the characters. It comes with a Demogorgon. It comes with like Hopper's car. It's amazing.
Nice.
Um, yeah. And I love being outside. I've
Hmm.
gotten not great at that in the last year and a half or so, but I love being outside. I love walking.
Hmm.
Walking, especially when it's nice out is just is so lovely, and
Hmm.
it really really clears my head, especially if if I'm listening to music, or like even if I'm not, like especially if I'm walking with someone. It just feels like such a unique form of connection,
Hmm.
especially like if you don't even need anywhere to go. Like in the place where I'm staying now, like there are just so many places to walk, and you can always end up in the same place, and there are always um different ways to get around, and I love it. Walking, I don't know. I'm a pretty, I would say I'm a pretty like laid back guy. Like I would be happy with, just I don't need to necessarily do anything.
Hmm.
Like if like these days, like I'm on winter break right now. And
Hmm.
so I'm perfectly happy just hanging out all day, reading, writing. I love writing too. Watching movies, hanging out, eating, and like, if you're in a place where you could do that, like that's optimal for me. But
That's life.
yeah, yeah. But I am also I do get pretty intense about scheduling things sometimes. Like
Hmm.
if there is something that's going to go on the calendar, I am very intent on getting there, and I'm very intent on that actually happening.
Hmm.
I tended to like a year and a half ago was the last time that I really was super intense about like having every hour of every day like sort of like mapped out for myself. Like this is when
Hmm.
I get free time. This is when I'm going to do this. This is when I'm going to do that. This is when I'm going to hang out with this person.
Hmm.
And I came to realize that that's not exactly how I want to live my life. But I am perfectly happy, and it actually makes me feel better to have things actually on the calendar instead of just talking about doing something, because that makes me feel secure and helps me not worry about that sort of thing, so I
Yeah.
don't have to
Yeah.
dedicate any more brain power to it. Um,
So, am I correct in saying you're very much like a to-do list person?
I'm a to-do list person, but there doesn't always have to be a to-do list if that
Yeah.
if that makes any sense.
But you like a structure, you like the organization,
I love structure. Yeah.
and you love to know when things are gonna happen.
Hmm.
All
Yes,
right.
exactly. That is very much very much who I am.
No, I can respect that, sir. Like I
Yeah.
can see a bit of myself in you, like in
Hmm.
certain shades, 100%. So you
Yeah.
and see, you mentioned walking, and obviously you're from New York. So
Hmm.
to me, like I've never been to New York, never been to America. So,
Hmm.
but from movies and TV shows, most New York, the idea is most New Yorkers are walkers. You
Hmm.
guys don't drive cars, you just walk or use
Yeah.
the subway and stuff. So
Yeah.
I get it. And
Hmm.
that's my next question, actually. So, since you're from New York, and I know there can be hundreds of places, But if I
Right.
were to tell you, hey, I'm coming for a week, what do I need to see? What do I need to visit? Where should I go and eat to have like
Mhm.
amazing 1 week experience in New York?
Yeah. So I go to school in not New York City proper.
Hmm.
I go to school about half an hour outside of the city, which is perfect for me because
Hmm.
it's suburban enough that the din and like the constant noise of the city doesn't bother me. But if
Hmm.
I wanted to go into the city, it's right there. So I actually haven't been to like all of the major like New York landmarks like Empire State Building, Statue of Liberty. I have never been to a lot of
Hmm.
these places. I've never been
Hmm.
to Staten Island, never been to Long Island, like never been anywhere. What I
Yeah.
do love to go to in when I do go to New York is the reason I go into the city a lot is to see movies that
Hmm.
aren't playing anywhere else and to go to plays. So Broadway is absolutely like one of my favorite places in the city. Because not only does it have like, all of those shows, but since everything's happening there, everything's sort of centralized. So there are like a bazillion places to eat around
Hmm.
there.
Hmm.
Um, Two of the places that I do enjoy going in New York is Times Square, which I like to go for a little bit of time before it gets overwhelming. And
Hmm.
I enjoy Columbus Circle as well. That's relatively close to Times Square. And I love Central Park. Like Central Park is like, especially if you like walking, like Central Park is just a huge stretch right in the middle of the city. There's always food that like there's vendors and restaurants.
Hmm.
And Washington Square Park is nearby there, and I love that as well. There's a big arch there, and plenty of busking, plenty of like little like groups of people gathered around people doing like little shows there. So that's always fun.
Hmm.
But I am actually from Massachusetts. I'm
Oh,
from
okay.
Cape Cod, which is for those who don't know, the arm shape peninsula that
Hmm.
is sort of jutting out into the Atlantic Ocean. Um, so I grew up there, and
Hmm.
that is just perfect. Sort of perfect suburbia for me. Like it's an hour and a half from Boston, so like close enough where if you needed to go up to Boston, it's not too much of a pain.
Hmm.
Um, but honestly, Cape Cod is like I've become sort of desensitized to a lot of this just because I've lived there my whole life.
Hmm.
But like the beaches are phenomenal. If you love beaches, Cape Cod is
Okay.
is the place to go in the spring and the summer specifically. Though there are sharks, at least in my
Hmm.
hometown. Um, I there are plenty of like touristy things there that I am not a huge fan of, but there's also a lot of stuff that that's more so for the locals. My favorite
Hmm.
place on Cape Cod is the Chatham Orpheum Theater, which is in my hometown. It's an independent cinema that has been open since the 1910s, so over 100 years now.
Nice.
With a couple interruptions. It was a
Hmm.
CVS for a little bit, but I have worked there for 8 years at this point, ever since I could work.
Hmm.
And it is one of my favorite places ever. I love just hanging out there. I love the people there. Everyone's so friendly. There was a bar with a restaurant downstairs.
Hmm.
And it's like so they have everything you could possibly need there. So that's my little plug for my favorite little hometown theater. But also, if you're looking at New York movie theaters, you can't get better than the AMC Lincoln Square, which
Hmm.
is where, like, if you hear about a movie that has a limited release, this is the theater in New York that it is releasing in. Like, Zone of Interest, American Fiction released here first.
Hmm. Hmm.
I could not see either of them there, but so I found other ways. But yeah, everything plays there. They have it's the biggest IMAX theater in the US. And it has like they get everything. They get re-releases, they get new releases, they get like cool, crazy, like one night only, like all of that plays there. So if you're in New
Hmm.
York and you want to see a movie, go to this place. It's pretty spectacular.
I am always so jealous of you guys, like you, Foster, sometimes Robert,
Yeah.
like and Shane. You actually hang out with each other and
Hmm.
go to these early screenings. And I'm always like,
Hmm.
oh, that'd be so fucking cool. That just,
Yeah.
I'm always get so jealous because, here in the UK, sometimes we even get releases, even big releases, quite late, and it's like,
Yeah.
what the fuck, man? Like, I
I
just I
definitely
still
don't
don't
take
understand
living
that.
in yeah, I definitely don't take living in the Northeast for granted.
Hmm. No,
It's
but it sounds
definitely very
awesome.
lucky, and I'm planning on living in LA starting this fall. So that's another like
Ooh.
that's the other place that that the limited releases
Is that because of
uh
you wanting
get put out.
to work in an industry, in a movie industry?
Yes, 100%.
Nice.
I mean, if I didn't like this is the only reason I would move out to LA because I'm not a
Hmm.
city person in general. Like I would never want to live in New York City.
Hmm.
And at least LA is like more spread out and it's not as
Hmm.
centralized as New York City is. But yeah, I really am excited to sort of try my hand and figure stuff out because that is the place to be. Like everyone knows if you want to break into film, LA is where you got to be at least to start.
Because
So,
I thought it's kind of between LA and New York, so it's fascinating to
totally.
me as a person, in
Yeah.
your position who can actually choose that you
Mhm.
would prefer LA over New York.
Yeah, New
Hmm.
York is also, well, there is the fact that New York is traditionally more expensive these days.
I see.
But also if I could like live in New York and have an easier way of figuring stuff out, I would. But to the best of my understanding,
Hmm.
LA is where you want to be to start out, and
Hmm.
then you can go to New York. If you like New York is better for people who are more established and can work both in New York and LA.
Oh, I
But
see.
like LA is like a great jumping off point.
Okay. See,
Yeah.
like I learn something new every day, and this is
Mhm.
why I wanted to do something like this because I would have
Yeah.
never known that.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. I really
Mhm.
hope it works out for you. Like I really hope
Thank you.
we will see
Yeah.
a lot of things about Rowan in the future.
I hope so too.
So with now that, let's play a game of this or that. It's quite
Mhm.
simple. I'll just give you two options, and you tell me which one would you prefer. And that
Great.
ranges from anything from silly to maybe a bit philosophical. So let's
Love it.
see. Let's see what we can do. So Rowan, tea or coffee?
See, I don't like either. I'm very strange
Hmm.
in my tastes. I'm very limited. I'll go chicken tenders and fries any day. Um, I would probably go tea just because
Hmm.
I despise the taste of coffee, and at least there's some flavors of tea that I can stomach.
Okay.
But I am a water guy all day, every day. I'm purely drinking water. I hate soda. I hate like milk. I'll drink milk with cereal. But that
Hmm.
is that is about
Wait,
it.
wait. Milk with cereal. Oh no, no, milk with cereal. I thought you said cereal with water. I was like,
Oh
oof.
no, that would be psychopathic. I would
That's.
never, even if I did that, I would never admit it on a public podcast.
I was like, wait, I heard water and then cereal. I was like, wait, stop, back up, back up. No, that's good. No, that's fair. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, coffee is not there for everybody.
Mhm.
So, money or free time?
Free time.
All right.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, money is fantastic, but
Yes.
so far I have not gone into the workforce yet, but so far I
Hmm.
have been able to make money doing what I like, working at a movie theater and
Hmm.
writing
Hmm.
and doing all that. But I would take free time any day. There is nothing like being able to settle down and do what you want.
Hmm.
Even like, it depends on how much money we're talking, but as a
Hmm.
concept,
Yes.
I would take free time any day.
All right.
Yeah.
Honesty or other people's feelings?
Hmm. Okay. So full disclosure,
Okay.
Luke and I talked before we started recording, and established I am not a person with too many hot takes or controversial opinions. I'm very
That is true.
agreeable. I'm very like I like to think that I'm naturally kind. And so I if I had this like ginormous secret that is
Hmm.
more like that would hurt other people's feelings if it got out.
Hmm.
It would still probably go honesty, just
Okay.
because I think that is the more I think even if it causes like harm, like emotional harm in the immediate wake,
Hmm.
I think it is a generally more respectful or like respected method of I don't know, but you get what I'm talking about.
No,
Like
I
I
understand.
will, yeah, totally,
I
yeah.
do understand you,
Honesty
even though you surprised
all
me.
day.
Because again, you are a
Yeah,
very wholesome character.
yeah,
You're a very wholesome guy. So like, I thought you were gonna say other people's feelings.
yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah. I luckily I haven't been in a situation like that too many times.
Hmm.
But I like to think that I would choose honesty. Maybe
Yes.
in practice it would be different, but in theory it's absolutely honesty.
No, that's fair. And again, you will eventually get there, and then you will see.
Yeah.
So, summer or winter?
See, in I would usually say winter
Okay.
because in with the temperature differences, my thinking has always been you can always put more layers on, but
Hmm.
you cannot take like there's a limit to what you can take off in the summer in order to stay cool.
Yes.
And I'm in the throngs of winter right now. I'm in the south actually, and it's like 20 degrees today, so it is
Hmm.
unpleasantly cold. So honestly, right now I'm gonna go summer, even though like
Hmm.
spring
Okay.
is my optimal season because then you can get like a little bit of both, and you get like
Yes.
perfect temperatures. But
Hmm.
summer, honestly, all the way. Even though when I'm here in the summer, it's like you literally can't be outside for too long or you will fry. And even when I'm back home in Massachusetts, it is mostly unpleasant to be outside. But yeah, I'll go summer for this one, even though I do think fondly of winter when I'm
Hmm.
not in winter. But when I
Hmm.
am in winter, I just want to be anywhere else.
Yeah, yeah, one of those people. I know those people very well. It's when it's summer, they want winter. When it's winter, they want summer.
Mhm.
Like I
Exactly.
kind of sometimes am like that, to be honest. So, free will or destiny?
See, destiny is such a romantic concept.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like, I feel like destiny is mostly used positively. Like,
Hmm.
if something positive happens, it's destiny.
Yeah.
But if you surmount odds, like, like
Hmm.
that's your free will triumphing, right?
Hmm.
So I am probably, oh boy, this is a tough one because I don't know if I necessarily believe in the concept of destiny as like a
Hmm.
um as a something that triumphs above everything else
Okay.
like in life, and like there's some predestined path. But my mother is a very spiritual person, and
Ah.
she has sort of she's helped me with things like sort of figure stuff out and like manifest stuff, and it
Hmm.
works, and I can't explain why or how it works
Okay.
other than like some sort of like cosmic
Hmm.
like set path. So against my better logical judgment, I'm going to go Destiny on this one.
Wow.
Yeah,
Another surprise. Another
I know.
surprise. I
Yeah.
like it though. I like it. So, the most important question of all, ninjas or pirates?
Interesting.
I know.
Um, huh. I don't know why this is the one that stumped me most of all.
It's there for a
Um,
reason. You can take it any way you want.
yeah, yeah. I'm gonna go ninjas
Okay.
primarily because when I was younger, I loved Lego Ninjago.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The sets, of course, but also the show. And that show just like really, really got me into ninjas for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And that has never happened with pirates, although they did have pirates in Lego Ninjago season two.
Ooh.
But ninjas definitely like conceptually are very cool, especially because they could go like any way. I mean, pirates can also go
Mm-hmm.
any way, but ninjas are so mysterious, so you could pretty much
Mm-hmm.
mold them into whatever you want them to be for any sort of story. Yeah, I'm gonna go ninjas.
That's fair. That's perfectly fair.
Yeah.
And the last one, time travel twice or teleport infinite times.
Teleport, 100%. Teleport.
Oh.
That would solve so many of your problems. Oh my
Mm-hmm.
God. Because
Mm-hmm.
time travel, not only does that have the possibility of like screwing up,
Mm-hmm.
the timeline theoretically,
Yep.
but also if you can only do it twice, like you would have to choose it so carefully, and I don't know if I can handle that sort of pressure. But
Mm-hmm.
teleporting, like I could teleport from here back to school instantly instead of having to, like go to the airport, get on a plane,
Mm-hmm.
g- t- take a flight, get off the plane, take an Uber back to school. Like that is a whole day's worth of, time saved. And then I could go anywhere that I wanted to instantly.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of perfect.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's fair. That is fair.
Yeah.
So, and we've established you're such a wholesome guy, you don't really have any hot takes whatsoever. So that's all. That's very, very well and
Unfortunately,
all.
quite
So we
quite a
can
boring
now.
man myself.
I no, I wouldn't. To be fair, I wouldn't say so. If you listener, as I listen to Rowan on many of his podcasts, you know he's not boring. But we can then move to the Flix part of this podcast and talk about movies, the thing
Mhm.
we both love.
Yeah.
So, Rowan, what's the last new movie you've rated 5 out of 5? And again, just to define new movie being anything 2020 further.
Mhm. So I have seen, I'm looking through my letterboxd now,
Hmm.
and in the past week and a half, I've rewatched three movies from 2023 that were my
Hmm.
favorites of the year. But I think I'm gonna interpret this question as the latest movie that I watched for the first time and rated it five out
Okay.
of five.
Okay.
Just because like Past Lives, Holdovers, All of Us Strangers, fantastic movies. Love
Yes.
them a lot. I don't know how many of those you have in the UK right now. Um, but
Holdovers are coming out soon.
yes, definitely seek that one out
Oh, I
as
will.
soon as you
I
can.
will.
But the Zone of Interest is one that I watched that I don't think you have across the pond yet.
Not yet.
Which sucks because it's incredible. And even A24 in the US has been incredibly stingy about
Hmm.
releasing it, which is a real shame because it's a really good and a really important movie
Hmm.
that really deserves to be seen. It's not okay. So for those of you who don't know, The Zone of Interest is about the commandant of the Auschwitz concentration camp, and
Hmm.
he lives a very idyllic life with his family in their pretty large house right over the wall from the camp. And you
Hmm.
never actually see what's happening in the camp. It's very much all of that is a backdrop. You can't
Hmm.
even really tell what's happening until occasionally you'll hear sounds and you'll sort of fixate on that and you'll think, what? Like you'll think about it for a second and then you realize, oh my God, those are screams and
Hmm.
that's gunfire. And there is such a horrifying atrocity happening literally like 50 feet from where we are right now. And that's
Hmm.
so deeply upsetting and horrifying. And yet the movie itself is like it's a domestic story of a family who doesn't want to leave their house. In
Hmm.
any other situation, it would feel entirely different, but it feels really like disturbing and you feel complicit watching this movie, and I've never seen a movie do it like this one does. It
Hmm.
really, really moved me and is definitely something that like everyone should see. And I wish A24 wasn't making that so difficult. But yeah, it's truly, truly phenomenal and would very much recommend checking it out whenever you can.
I don't know if it was you or somebody else. I've managed to write, or sorry, I read a review, and somebody mentioned that they didn't understand the release strategy about this movie, and that the
Mhm.
A24 are making a huge mistake because this movie is phenomenal. So I cannot wait
Yeah.
to see it. I didn't
Mhm.
even know what that movie was about because yeah, like
Yeah.
there's nothing that this movie even exists here,
Mhm.
So it's just to me it's insane. It kind of reminds me, maybe like without having seen it, kind of
Mhm.
reminds me almost. It might be taken as a parallel to German nation at the time of World War II, because from
Right.
like I'm big or I used to be very big into history, especially World War II, and from what I understand, many of German like population at the time they didn't know about concentration camps until
Mhm.
the wars basically was over. They
Right.
knew obviously there was a war. They didn't know that something like this was happening until the very end of war. And
Mhm.
then they just couldn't grasp it that they were part of something like this. So it seems very fascinating subject. So I
Yeah,
cannot wait to see that movie.
it's really incredible. Definitely like, and it's going to be big come
Mhm.
Oscar season. At
Mhm.
least I hope so. We'll find out next Tuesday, but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So, what is the last movie you rated 5 out of 5 that we would call, or I would call, teen movie? So, anything released between 2003 to 2019.
So that is tricky. I am looking at that right now. I have been up until very recently, I've been pretty stingy about my 5-star movies.
Okay.
Just because I really like I initially thought for something to be 5 stars, it needs to be my favorite movie ever.
Hmm.
Like it
Hmm.
needs to be insanely, like it needs to be just absolutely wild.
Hmm.
So recently I've come to the conclusion that it doesn't need to necessarily like rock my world in the way that I
Hmm.
initially thought. It only has to, like, if something feels like a 5 star movie to me, it's a 5 star movie. Like
Yes.
I don't have to immediately put it on my list of favorite movies ever. Like
Hmm.
it doesn't
Hmm.
have to be that. It just has to be a movie that I feel deserves those 5 stars.
Hmm.
Um, and so the movie from 2003 to 2019 that I most recently rated 5 stars is The Tale of Princess Kaguya, which is a Studio Ghibli movie that's
Oh,
pretty underseen
okay.
comparatively. So it's not Miyazaki. It's directed by Isao Takahata, who directed Grave of the Fireflies, which I would say is a much more well-known
Hmm.
Ghibli
Hmm.
movie. Princess Kaguya came out in 2013, and it's the only Ghibli movie to be done in like a watercolor, um,
Ooh.
sort of like a watercolor format, which is
Hmm.
just so interesting. And I've never seen any movie done like that before. And it
Hmm.
looks incredible. Like this is a 2 hour and 15-minute movie. It took a long time to make.
Hmm.
Um, and it is so devastating. It's based on Japanese folklore. So it
Hmm.
does have its roots in that culture, and you can really feel how much of a labor of love this movie was to make.
Hmm.
Because if you think about it practically, 2+ hours done in watercolor, colored by hand, probably. Like that is such a massive undertaking that you it has to be something that you are like just such like so devoted to that you could spend that time doing that with that same love pouring into it all of that time. And this
Yeah.
movie, it just really felt um I felt that importance
Hmm.
personally.
Hmm.
Um and it is just so it's I mean it's perfect. I think it is
Hmm.
just absolutely incredible. It's so sad. The English dub as well is just incredible. James Caan is in it as well, which
Ooh.
was really interesting because I watched it for the first time shortly after he passed away, and so
Mm.
that was it was really interesting to see him do voiceover work, which I don't think I'd ever seen him do before, at least
Hmm.
in as major a role as he has here. Yeah, so I really love this movie and would encourage people who love Studio Ghibli to check this one out because most people, I don't think, at least in the US, have heard of this movie.
Well, I'm one of them, and yet another movie I need to put on my ever-growing
Excellent.
to watch list
Yeah.
because just, as fellow cinephile know, those movie watch lists are not getting any shorter. And
Yes,
also, just
indeed.
to, just to point out something, I'm so happy that you are now less for lack of better words, snobbish about your 5 star ratings, and I love to
Yeah.
see that because I know people that are like that and still are like that. I actually would love to talk to them about it because
Mhm.
I do think it's not really fair to do it. But again, that's just
Yeah.
my philosophy, and I would love to see or speak to somebody who does it on purpose and their perspective. So no, I love to
Yeah.
see that. So what is the last adult movie you rated 5 out of 5? Which, for the definition of this podcast, is anything from 2002 to 1975.
So I watched this movie a little less than a week ago. It's
Hmm.
William Friedkin's Sorcerer,
Oh.
which I know I actually was so obsessed with this movie after watching it that I did a deep dive. I wrote an article about it for my own site. Like I just
Hmm.
got so into looking into this movie. It came out a month after Star Wars in 1977 and
Yep.
was annihilated at the box office. It was
Hmm.
buried. It made back a fraction of its budget. But this movie is so like incredibly good. Like
Hmm.
I watched it with a couple other people. All three of us were blown away. It was
Hmm.
wild.
Hmm.
Um, it's basically about four guys from different parts of the world who flee their respective countries for various reasons, and sort of are doing like um, wage work in this tiny South American town, and they are
Hmm.
picked. they are chosen. They don't know each other. They're chosen individually to transport unstable, highly volatile crates of nitroglycerin across a 200-mile jungle in these giant trucks to put out a chemical fire.
Hmm.
And the first hour or so is like the first half of this movie is really set up. We find out who these guys are, why they're in the
Hmm.
situation, and
Hmm.
then when they get put together, it is like the tension is just built so
Hmm.
expertly. And I was just floored by this movie. It caught me off guard. It made me audibly gasp, and I do not remember the last time a movie was able to do that for me.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
the performances are fantastic. Roy Scheider is the only actor that I recognized in it, but everyone is fantastic. Um, and it is just so tense and suspenseful. There is a scene where they're trying to drive a truck across this super loose rope bridge across that's
Hmm.
over a river that just blew my mind because they actually had to film that. It was 1977. There was no visual effects. There was no way they could have faked it. They actually had to do it.
Hmm.
And that commitment just really, really blew my mind. So I think more people really should watch this movie because it is phenomenal.
As I commented on your X post when you
Uh,
posted about it, I really
yeah.
hope Wages of Fear is next. That's the original
Hmm.
from France, from France from
Hmm.
58, I believe. And it's that movie
53, I think.
exactly. Oh yeah, 52, you're right.
Yeah.
And that blew my tiny mind when I saw it like 10, 12 years ago.
Uh-huh.
The scene exactly as you say, there's also a scene in a jungle where I remember being like half an hour, just this one set piece of them moving this truck very, very slowly because
Hmm.
it can explode at any given time. And I
Yeah.
don't think I felt as much anxiety like before that. So no, it's a great movie. And Sorcerer is also on my shelf of Blu-rays to watch. So I'm definitely getting around to that.
Yeah, it's absolutely it's very much one that I'm trying to grow my Blu-ray collection, and Sorcerer is
Mhm.
definitely one that I would like ASAP.
And what is the last old movie? So anything past 1974, you last rated 5 out of 5.
That movie would be, and this is a perfect example of movie I'd rate 5 out of 5 that is not one of my favorites of all time.
Okay.
It
Okay.
is, I watched this in preparation just in case it had some vital information for Ridley Scott's Napoleon. It is Napoleon from 1927, directed by this French director named Abel Gance.
Hmm.
Basically, he wanted to make 5 Napoleon movies that would basically chart every single like every major event in his life. He only
Hmm.
made one because it was massively expensive, and it is 5.5 hours long. This is a long friggin' movie.
Hmm.
It took me a
Hmm.
long time to get through this, but it is. I tend not to throw this around too often, lest it lose its meaning, but it's a masterpiece. I
Hmm.
genuinely think this is truly incredible. It was such a it was a pioneer sort of film. It basically invented a lot of camera movements because cameras weren't moving a ton back then
Hmm.
in 1927. And this movie has battle sequences. It has like at the very beginning there's a snowball fight that is sort of like laid out as a battle in
Hmm.
like little Napoleon's head, and it's also like super educational. Like I'm glad I watched this before Ridley Scott's Napoleon because it covers so much stuff about his upbringing and his early life that Ridley Scott's movie doesn't even touch and doesn't even mention.
Hmm.
And so this is very much yeah, yeah, yeah. This is I love this movie, and I would have loved to see more from this director on this subject.
Hmm.
But I do think that what we did get, like, I'm not going to complain. I think it's really, really fantastic. It feels really modern too in how it's presented, despite being 5.5 hours long. If you ignore that part, but I
Yeah.
think that this is definitely one. Like, if you love silent movies and if you love film in general, this is a
Hmm.
very important film that I feel like a lot of people don't really talk about too often.
Hmm. No, it's definitely yet again one of those. It's on quite a lot of lists of like best ever, or this needs to, you need to see this, you need to
Yeah.
see this. So I'm aware of it, but the runtime of 5.5 hours, it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's
I had to do it in multiple sittings.
Like I've like last year, I finally watched I want to say Satan Tango. It's the Hungarian
Oh
movie
yeah,
that's
yeah,
like
yeah,
seven
yeah,
and a
yeah. The
half
Bela
hours.
Tarr movie. That
Yeah,
is another one that I watched in many
yep,
many sittings, and I honestly I didn't really love it. And I know that's another hot, like sort of Criterion hot take,
yes.
but
Same, look,
yeah.
same with me. Like I kind of wrote something in my letterbox review as this is kind of movie that we can talk about for hours as to what constitutes art and whether
Hmm.
something, if it's, if there's a shot for 10 minutes, does that constitute art? For
Right.
many people,
Yeah.
they would say yes. For
Hmm.
some others, they would say maybe not. But again, we can discuss that, till our, for hours.
Absolutely.
What would you say is your favorite decade for movies?
Favorite decade for movies? Either, oh God, because like the last couple decades of the 20th century are
Mhm,
just phenomenal. Like so
mhm.
many absolutely incredible, incredible films. I'm going to say the 80s. And I know that's like
Oh.
probably a pretty cliche answer, but I mean, we got like some of the greatest movies ever. We got Back to the Future, we
Mhm,
got RoboCop. We
mhm,
got so much incredible, just absolutely incredible stuff. But like the 90s are great, the 70s are great, but
mhm.
we got the Empire Strikes Back, The Shining, Amadeus, Die Hard, Aliens, Princess Bride, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Cinema Paradiso. Like these are movies that you can't argue with in terms of
Yeah.
how fantastic they are. So yeah, I'm gonna go cliche and say the 80s.
And of course, many horror movies, found their footing in the 80s and
Mm-hmm.
continued well after the 80s.
Too long,
Wow.
some might say.
Yeah, some.
Yeah.
So even though you're a wholesome guy and have no hot takes about life, what about some movies? Do you have some
Okay.
hot takes?
I do have a hot take. And I
Tell me.
know, I think my explanation for this is going to make it sound like less of a hot take, but I am a big fan of what Marvel is doing nowadays.
Okay.
I just have one, like only one problem, like not getting into like specific films and problems with
Hmm.
specific films and shows. I
Hmm.
have one problem with their overall strategy. Um, but I love that they are expanding their universe. Like post Endgame, I think
Hmm.
they did a lot of like good things in terms of sort of experimenting and seeing
Hmm.
what stuck and giving characters like Scarlet Witch and Moon Knight and Miss Marvel who may not be able to, who couldn't necessarily have like a feature film dedicated to their own, yeah, like dedicated to their own origins. Like I think a TV show is just a perfect way to
Hmm.
do that. And I think Disney Plus is great. Like I think they made so many good decisions, but I think the choice to make all of them necessary is a
Hmm.
big problem. And like I think people would be so much more into Marvel if you could drop in like wherever and sort of catch up instantly. Like with the Infinity
Yeah.
Saga, you could pretty much drop in anywhere and get a sense of where these characters are and at what point. The way Marvel should be doing stuff now is having characters like I love characters popping up in each other's stuff, but you don't
Hmm.
necessarily have to have seen another thing to understand what's going
Hmm.
on now. Like I love, this is slight spoilers for the Marvels, which has been out for a while, but Kate Bishop from Hawkeye appears at the end of the Marvels. And I think that's a great way to end the movie because if you have seen Hawkeye,
Hmm.
you're so excited for Kate Bishop to interact with Miss Marvel because they have a relationship in the comics and you recognize Kate Bishop. If you haven't seen Hawkeye, you're intrigued. Who is this character? It might make you want to go, like, want to do some research and want to make you watch Hawkeye. I think
Hmm.
that is a great concept. I hope the next time they appear, like Miss Marvel and Kate Bishop, you don't have to have seen Hawkeye to necessarily understand their origins and dynamics. You won't hopefully you won't have to have seen Miss Marvel or even the
Hmm.
Marvels to understand that. You just have to be able to sort of pick up on, and like they can slide little references in there and they don't
Yeah.
necessarily have to be exposition machines, but I
Hmm.
do think there is a way that they could do it. I just think that making everything necessary is their biggest downfall right now. But like I'm a huge fan of like having Shang-Chi get a movie.
Hmm.
Like I thought Moon Knight was fantastic. I actually really liked Echo. I know a lot of people didn't really like that show, but I really
Hmm.
like that too. So I think there's a lot of good stuff that can be done here. And I just think they're not taking full advantage of it, which is weird considering how much they're putting out. You think that they would, but
No, like Moon Knight, I think it's a perfect example of what you're talking about because that's a show that really exists on its own, doesn't it?
yeah.
You don't have to even know anything about Marvel whatsoever. Like literally, you don't have to watch, you wouldn't have to watch any single Marvel movie before watching Moon Knight because it's
Mhm.
all its own thing, its own story. It doesn't even reference. I think they maybe reference the blip once, maybe if I remember correctly. And yeah, it's just
Yeah.
its own, narrative. It just like 6 or 8 episodes and just finishes. There might be
Hmm.
a second. I don't know if there might be a second season. If not, great.
Who
If
knows?
if yes, yeah.
Yeah.
But exactly, we don't know. And I still need to get around to see to watch Echo. But I've seen the initial reactions and they are like middling.
I say give it a shot.
No, I will.
It's definitely worth it in the end.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's just like it's I think that there was a lot of good stuff there and they rushed the last couple episodes. It either had to be a longer show or a
Hmm.
shorter movie.
Yeah.
And I think there's really no in between. But I think they're on the right track. I think they can fix it if they really pull it together, but
Hmm.
I don't
Hmm.
know. I don't know. My faith is wavering.
No, that's fair. Like, that's
Yeah.
definitely like I think we are definitely past the peak, but if anybody can bring the peak back, I still have a bit of faith in MCU.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
with that, let's move to the underrated part of this podcast, meaning
Mhm.
who would you say, Rowan, is the most underrated actor we have right now?
This is going to sound strange considering
Uh-huh.
that he's been in so much these days, and especially in the last 10 years. But Jeffrey Wright, I would most underrated and undervalued actors in
Undervalued, yes.
because he just got his first starring role in live action in American fiction. And that
Mm-hmm.
is crazy to me for someone as talented as he is. Because he was in the Hunger Games, he's in the Batman,
Mm-hmm.
he's a friggin' Marvel star in a show that he's not necessarily, like the main even the main character of.
Mm-hmm.
But I really, really like his sort of subtle acting style
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily overacting sensibility. Like he doesn't overact, and I think that's really, really good because he tends to get cast. Like, I mean, he's a Wes Anderson guy now too, and I think he fits
Yeah.
in really, really well with Wes Anderson stuff. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but he's always supporting it in there. And I am very much hoping that he gets sort of like a Cillian Murphy treatment in, when with Christopher Nolan, because Cillian Murphy was a supporting character in Christopher Nolan's movies for like 15 years, almost
Mm-hmm.
20 years, I think, before he got Oppenheimer. I think his like Jeffrey Wright, he just seems to suit being a main character so well, especially in American fiction. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that he's such a varied actor. He could do so much, and he's just not getting the opportunity to do that. And so I really,
Mm-hmm.
really hope that he does at some point in the future.
100% agree. Like first time I've taken notice of him was I had to look it up just to make sure I'm not wrong. Was a TV show called Boardwalk Empire,
Hmm.
and he appears on fourth season and fifth season, and he pretty much steals those seasons. And it was the first time, as you say, they gave him a
Hmm.
lot of space. This his character was prevalent for those seasons, and I was
Hmm.
like, who is this guy? And then I noticed, oh, he's been in a couple of like a lot of stuff, but always as a this side character, or this
Yeah.
guy, and I'm so happy ever since Boardwalk Empire, I'm looking for him, and he's been getting more and more. But yeah, he needs to have a like I feel like he needs to have more leading roles because this guy definitely has the talent. He's got the presence. He's got the charisma. He is.
Hmm.
I think we haven't even seen the peak of what he can do, and that always
Yes.
intrigues me. Like it seems like the best is yet to come.
Hmm. He's
So.
also great in Westworld, which he is
Mhm.
sort of starring in.
Mhm.
But it felt like for the last two seasons they didn't really know what to do with his character. But especially in the first couple of seasons, he is just
Mhm.
incredible, just so good.
Yet another show I need to get around to. However, this one is slightly different because I know it's finished now after 4 seasons,
Yeah.
and it's not finished because they wanted to have season five where they were supposed to finish everything. So
Mhm.
now I'm in this weird place where I really want to watch it, but I also don't want to watch it because of, I don't want to start something that's not actually finished. So I was hoping that somebody would pick it up for the last season so they can actually wrap up the story the way they want it.
I don't know. We'll see. My guess is that it's probably not going to happen because it's been 2 years at this point, or
Yeah,
has it been 3 years? Maybe two or 3 years.
I think
I
now
don't
it's gonna
even
be a second year. I think
remember.
now it's gonna be a second year. Like
Yeah,
if I remember
still,
correctly, because yeah, it's just no, it's crazy. But like, just give them one more season. Like HBO, just give them
yeah,
one more season. What the fuck are you
totally.
doing?
Yeah, you have the money.
Yes, and and a lot of hit shows have ended, so you need some hit shows.
Yes,
But
100%.
anyway, who would you say is the most underrated actress we have right now?
Underrated actress. I think I mean, there are a lot of people that I would have answered a couple of years ago have been getting a lot of like really, really fantastic roles. Like Carey Mulligan is one
Oh.
that I think is incredible, and she has recently, like within the last few years, gotten some really solid starring roles in Promising Young Woman
Mm-hmm.
and now Maestro, which she
Mm-hmm.
is incredible in.
Yes.
So honestly, like I probably go with her, even like
Mm-hmm.
even just like Jeffrey Wright, like she has been getting some starring roles, but I think just more people need to know how good at acting she is, because I've been a fan of her ever since she was in Doctor Who, in an episode of
Mm-hmm.
Doctor Who when she was I think like maybe 20, like 19 or 20. And so
Mm-hmm.
so I've known about her forever. But like in Promising Young Woman and Maestro and even Saltburn, and like the two scenes in
Oh yes,
Saltburn she's in, I think she's incredible there
she
too.
is.
And I think she, like, sort of just like Jeffrey Wright, like she is solidly undervalued in the
Mm-hmm.
way that she can, she's pretty much a chameleon. Like she can play any character. And I feel like
Mm-hmm.
for a solid decade, like in like her character in Drive is what I think of the most, is that she was sort of typecast. And she is an
Mm-hmm.
actress that you never ever want to typecast because she could do anything and everything. And I think
Yes.
people really need to realize that and just start putting her in more and better stuff.
No, 100%. Like
Yeah.
I don't watch Doctor Who, so I haven't seen her in Doctor
Mhm.
Who. But the first movie I've ever seen her was, I believe, her first movie, which was an Education with Alfred
Mhm.
Molina, and
Yeah.
she was, I believe, nominated for an Oscar for that. So pretty good start. And then
Yeah.
Shame, that's a movie,
Yeah.
and
I have
Great
not seen.
Gatsby,
Oh, she's really good in Gatsby,
yeah, and like
despite
and
what you
I
might think
hope.
about the movie.
Exactly. No, exactly. And that's the thing. Like, I'll say something weird, but stick with me here. She, for me, is the female equivalent of Denzel Washington. Like,
Mm.
if she's in a movie, I know she's always gonna
Right.
deliver.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
like Denzel is somebody for me who the movie might not be the best, but
Mhm.
Denzel's always great. Like Denzel never drops his quality. There's a standard to Denzel's acting. Same for me,
Yeah.
Carey Mulligan. Like as he mentioned exactly Solburn. She's got like two,
Mhm.
3 scenes, and she's like larger than life, even though she's not like trying to overshadow or overact anybody, but she just is. And she is still, I really wish she would win an Oscar one day or at least or two, because I feel like she deserves it. Like it's insane. Like she is so talented.
Yeah. Fully agree.
So what about some directors? Who would you say is the most underrated director?
I'm gonna go with I know one of our friend Foster's favorites
Hmm.
is J.A. Bayona,
Oh.
who is such he has such an interesting filmography. Every
Hmm.
single one of his movies I've seen, I have really enjoyed. Like Society of the Snow, which just came out,
Hmm.
is like so well directed. The Impossible is great. A Monster Calls is fantastic. I have a soft spot for Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom. And the first two episodes of The Rings of Power, I think, are really only good because of the way that he directs it.
Hmm.
I know, like I never even finished that show just because I got so, like, I hate to say that I got bored with it, but I got bored with it. I haven't seen. I know the Orphanage is his only major
Oh,
feature that I
that's
haven't seen.
hmm
Oh,
and it's a great
I
movie.
know for a fact I love it. But
Hmm.
I feel like he doesn't get enough credit for just like he can sort of slip into a movie and make it his own. And what I love about him is that there is no like God bless Guillermo del Toro, my favorite
Mhm.
director of all time. He has a certain kind of movie that he is very good at making. J.A.
Yes.
Bayona can do anything and he can make it good and he can make it look great. And
Hmm.
that is what I really, really appreciate about his directing style is that it
Hmm.
doesn't necessarily have to be pinned down in any particular way. He can do anything, and that is
Yep.
something that not many people can really pull off.
I would cautiously recommend Penny Dreadful, the
Hmm.
TV show with Eva Green and Timothy Dalton, I believe. And
Hmm.
because as he directed the first two episodes, and those are definitely the highlights of that show because he is well, his start was in horror, like in Orphan and then Penny Dreadful, and you can feel the first two episodes are definitely the scariest ones of that entire TV show. The TV show
Hmm.
itself not necessarily lands everywhere where it should land, especially in the last
Right.
season. But it's worth trying. And if for Jurassic World, I'll say even though I wasn't a big fan, I don't think he was the problem because I remember talking to somebody about a movie and saying it just feels like they locked him in a room for the first half of a movie and it was directed by like studio execs, and for the last like 40 minutes the specifically the scene in the house where they're being haunted by the dinosaurs. I was like, that's when they let him out of the room, and that's when he actually showed up on a set. Because that movie just it's just the for the first like 3 quarters is the most stereotypical Hollywood blockbuster you will ever see, and then the
Hmm.
last like fourth is like this is what I really expected when I saw his name attached to be a director of Jurassic World movie.
Hmm.
And yeah, that's why I was slightly disappointed with that movie, but great pick. He's definitely one of the good ones.
Yeah.
So, what about an underrated movie in your opinion?
I mean, there are so
Mm-hmm.
just so
I
many
know.
that I could like this is like well, I don't know if it's exactly like that.
Mhm.
But an underrated movie. I'm gonna go Game Night, which
Okay.
is one of my all-time favorite comedies that I feel like sort of flew in under the radar and needs to get attention as one of the most consistently funny movies like ever made. The
Hmm.
jokes hit just like one after the other and never really let up throughout the entire thing. Just some incredible performances. Rachel McAdams, um,
Rachel, yes.
uh, Jason Bateman, like even Jeffrey Wright. I think
Mm-hmm.
is great in his little role that he pops up in. Everyone brings their A game. The script is incredible, and
Hmm.
it just works so well. Oh, Jesse Plemons. How can I not?
Oh
How can I
yes.
not talk about Jesse
Come
Plemons?
come inside.
Yeah, who has some of my favorite line deliveries ever in this movie. Like this is definitely a comfort movie for me, and I
Hmm.
I I just love it so much. I could watch it. I watched it actually at that movie theater that I work at back home. My brother and I stayed after closing one night and we threw it up on the big screen and it was amazing. I hadn't
Oh.
seen it on the big screen yet, and it was just so fun to have a theater to ourselves and just watch one of the funniest movies of all time. So.
That's so good. Like it's such a great
Mhm.
pick. Rachel
Yeah.
McAdams specifically, she's hilarious in that movie. It
Hmm.
always slaves me when there's a scene with towards the end, her and the bad guy and the airplane,
Yeah.
and the bad guy gets sucked into the turbine,
Oh
and she's
no,
like, "Oh
he
no, he
died.
died!" But she's still like she celebrates before like yes,
Yeah.
and then like few seconds later, "Oh no, he died!" That's just such a great comedic timing. I don't think
Yeah,
she gets the credit for her comedic chops or to be fair, even
definitely not.
acting chops.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
Are You There? Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. She was great in that
She's
movie.
so overlooked when it comes to the awards. Like she's not going to get an
Mm-hmm.
Oscar nomination, but she really should.
Mm-hmm. That is so true.
Yeah.
And what about some underrated TV show?
So I have two that I'm gonna mention here. One of
I
them
love it.
is yeah. Thank you. So one of them is so I haven't seen all of the Child's Play movies, but I've watched
Okay.
extensive videos on the lore and everything that happens in them. And Chucky does have a show in season 3 right now that is a direct continuation of the movie series and has a ton of the same cast that
Hmm.
just kind of pops up. And Brad Dourif is Chucky. Jennifer Tilly's in there. Alex Vincent, who was the kid in the first Child's Play, appears as well. And each season is just so wild and outrageous and so friggin' gory,
Hmm.
and violent and shocking. Season 3, like Chucky is in the White House and he is killing people in the White House. And it's so wild. Not only does it do, like, is it that, but it maintains that incredibly complex and intricate lore going all the way back to the first movie. Like the continuity is still very much intact, and I really, really respect that. As someone that like wants to do something like this in the future and make a series that spans movies, I'm sure there's been, like pros
Hmm.
and TV. Like this is like a dream for
Hmm.
a creative person like me. And the other show that I want to spotlight is called Avenue 5. It's a
Oh
like
yes.
it's like a like a sci-fi comedy masterminded by Armando Iannucci, who did
Hmm.
wait, no, he do Veep?
Yes, he is
Yeah,
behind
he
Veep.
did Veep. He did In the Loop. Is In the Loop the movie or the show? I can never remember.
That's the movie. There was a
That
TV show
that's the movie.
before. There
It's
was a TV show before.
The Thick of It. The Thick of It is
Yeah,
what
the
the
thick of
show's
it.
called.
Yep, yep, yep.
Um, and his writing is so like fucking hilarious.
Yes.
And so this is a show which is about this crew and passengers of this like luxury like cruise liner that gets knocked off their course, and it's going to be like 8 years before they can get back to Earth. And so they are like slowly unraveling, and everything gets
Hmm.
crazier and crazier and crazier. The cast is fantastic. Hugh Laurie is at the lead. Josh Gad is in this. The
Yes.
supporting cast is hilarious, and it was canceled after 2 seasons, and nobody
Is
talks
it
about
actually
it
official?
anymore. Yeah. It was canceled a while ago because the cast was only contracted for 2 seasons, and so they
Mm.
they they opted not to renew it, which is really sad because I think it's so clever and so
Hmm.
entertaining.
See, I never ask my guests, what are their picks because I want to be
Mhm.
surprised. So
Right.
this might seem weird, but I love those two picks because, like,
Hmm.
I always felt like I'm one of the few people who've seen Avenue 5
Hmm.
because my girlfriend and I we watched it together, and yeah, we both loved it. It's such a quirky, kind of interesting, funny show, like
Hmm.
quick. And speaking of Armando, we cannot forget the Death of Stalin. That
Oh, of
movie,
course, of course.
if you have not seen it, oh my fucking God, that's, kind of based in real life, kind of not.
Enough.
And
Yeah,
it's,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
when you
Based in real life
hear,
enough.
how terrifyingly accurate, especially those people were, like the guy who
Yeah.
was molesting children in real
Hmm.
life and was known for it, and then it's like it hits you very hard at the end.
Hmm.
But it's such a great movie. And speaking of Chucky, so Foster is the reason I bought a Blu-ray of all 7 movies of Chucky. So
Nice.
I'll get on that soon. And you
Yeah.
are the reason I want to watch the show because you guys been
Yes.
hyping it up on Franchise Paradiso. So
Yeah.
I do. That's my kind of one of my big goals of this year to get into Chucky
Love it.
and see where that takes me.
Hmm.
So I've been asking you questions for a while now, so let's turn the tables. Do you have any questions for me?
I want to know, because we sort of skimmed over it, for me, in life in general, do
Mhm.
you have a hot take
Oh
that
shit.
you are comfortable with sharing with the world?
I have many. So for today, I'll just pick. I feel like we, as a society, I think we are at a point where we realize how many awful things we have done in the past.
Mm.
Especially, for example, if you live in America, obviously there's a big conversation with race and with
Yeah.
everything surrounding that. And it's needed. It's definitely good. I think now we are in this overcorrection where suddenly it seems to be kind of going backwards, but it's being labeled as progress in a
Hmm.
way where I need to word myself carefully because this is gonna be. Uh, I've seen some like stuff where people are thinking about separating colleges again by race, and they're calling it progress this time. And I'm like, really? 50 years ago or 60 years ago, wasn't there a big movement against that? And
Hmm.
now it kind of seems fascinating. So I feel like we now have gotten into the point where we need to listen to each other more without suspecting the worst of everybody else.
Mhm.
And that, I guess, would be my hot take, that not everything is, or needs to be good or bad, black or white,
Right.
there are a lot of shades of in between. And just because some people believe if you're not 100% with me, you're 100% against me,
Right.
I don't think that's gonna work out for us in
Mhm.
a long term for neither
Yeah.
of us.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Interesting.
that's just what I believe. And again, this is why I actually wanted to talk and talk to people and actually get their opinions, because this would be kind of what I would like to get into more. But not everybody wants to go there, and which is fine. Again,
Yeah.
to each their own.
Yeah. Exactly.
But Roman, this has been a blast. So if
Yeah.
people want to find you and follow
Mhm.
you, deep breath, where can they find you?
Well, I have a website that is knockonwoodfilm.com. I
Mm-hmm.
write some cool stuff there. I have some other people writing cool stuff there as well,
Mm-hmm.
theoretically. And you can also find me on Letterboxd and Instagram at Rowan a Boat,
Mm-hmm.
on Twitter or X at Bits
Mm-hmm.
of Joel. And I have some other podcasts, Rowan in the Wasteland, which I do with our friend Shane,
Mm-hmm.
Franchise Paradiso, which I do with Heath and Foster, and Runtime Babe that I do with my partner Davis. So all of those are in various stages of continuing. So you should definitely check those out wherever podcasts are found. But Letterboxd is probably where I'm most active these days.
Yeah.
I try to watch a couple movies every day, and I sometimes that's more successful, and sometimes I don't, but then I overcompensate the next day to make up for it. But yeah, no, I like any of those places I will be talking about movies. So if you want to engage with me there, just do it. I love talking to people, and I love talking to people about movies especially.
Mm-hmm. And I would strongly encourage you to follow Rowan. And if you want to follow me, it's lostinmovies.co.uk. That's my blog where I post a review twice a week. Letterboxd in Movies Lost. This podcast, or on my buddy Shane and we also have a podcast on his Wasteland Rewinds and Wasteland Collide. So you can catch me there twice a month talking about various movies. But this is the end of this podcast. So, Robin, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for giving me your time and, sharing all your thoughts about life and movies.
Of course, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Anytime, man. And this podcast is part of SPDM Crew Podcast Media. And this is the end. So, until next time, bye bye.